Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Chat and Chew monthly Zoom. I am Debbie Zimmerman, and I am a Food for Life instructor with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. Earlier this year, I had the privilege of meeting our speaker, Dr. Jill Jennings, as the Physicians Committee was rolling out these breast cancer rallies all around the United States. Well, I joined Jill, Dr. Jill, and we just had a breast cancer rally in Tampa at the Waterworks Park this past weekend. And now this one wore me out, but Jill has done 2 additional rallies, not only down in the Bradenton area, but also up in Chicago, where she was originally from. Now, Dr. Jennings is a naturopathic doctor. She is a wife and the mother of 4 boys. She has an amazing story to tell us, and you will be thrilled to hear it, I promise. But you know what? After 25 years in healthcare and battling 2 major health crises, Dr. Jill experienced what it meant to be both a doctor and a patient. And she will explain that in her darkest days of her life, she discovered not only faith, joy, and laughter in the midst of her battle. And through her pain, she discovered her purpose. And now she uses her experiences to educate and inspire others. I hope you are as inspired as I have been working with her. And Dr. Jill, we are turning it all over to you, and I know you're going to do a fabulous job.
Thank you, Debbie, so much. Thank you all for having me. It's such an honor to be here. And I just love sharing my story because it just has really transformed my life. And so I will share my story with whoever will listen. But I have worked in healthcare for, this will be my 27th year, wanted to be a doctor my whole entire life, and I actually walked away from it. I started working in the hospitals and watching the doctors and thinking, these doctors are miserable. And it was the nurses who were doing everything. So I went back to school, got my nursing degree, and I worked as an ER nurse for 15 years. And during that time, I became really sick. And my disease progressed over the course of about 10 years. And I saw every doctor. I had dozens of tests. I had multiple medications. Nobody knew what was wrong with me. And a couple of my friends said, you need to go see our naturopathic doctor. Now, at the time, I thought, what do they know? I thought I knew a few things about medicine. Well, it turns out I knew nothing. And I was desperate. So I took his name and number, and we drove 10 hours to go see this doctor. And it opened my eyes to the world of natural and lifestyle medicine, and it healed me. And I thought, okay, maybe I was supposed to be a doctor, just not where I thought. And God had to put me through what I went through in order to get me where he needed me to be. So like a crazy woman at the age of 40 with 4 kids and still working in the ER every weekend, I went back to full-time medical school and got my doctorate degree in naturopathic medicine. Started a private practice, doing really fun things. And then 2020 hit and everything went up in flames and the whole world changed, and I was no different. COVID hit the scene. It killed my private practice. I ended up back in the hospital working with my nursing degree. In June of that year, my mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And then 4 months later, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So to say that it was rough is a gross understatement. And I got to be honest, I argued with God big time. And I was like, I'm the healthy one. Is everything I worked for my whole entire life a joke? And I just really argued with God. And what I realized is that when I wanted so much control in my life and everything was so out of control, I had to learn that God is always in control. And so my cancer journey was very, very much a spiritual journey as much as it was a physical, emotional, and mental journey. Cancer is a roller coaster, but it also taught me that I still had so much more to learn. And so I dug in deep during my cancer journey to diet and lifestyle things that I was missing. I said, there's got to be something that I'm missing. And first was spiritual. I had found faith later in my adult life and grew in my faith. But when cancer showed up, God just taught me that sometimes everything has to be taken away for you to realize that God is all you ever really need. And so it was very much a spiritual journey for me. And God did major, major miracles during my journey. He made it very clear to me at the beginning of my journey that I would be on a stage telling my testimony and that I was supposed to write a book, which I was like, I'm not an author, but I've learned to do what God tells me to do. So I eventually did write a book, and I'm glad that he prompted me to do that, because I took notes during my journey of all of the small miracles that God was doing. He did the big miracles, but he also did thousands of tiny miracles. And when I look back, I say, I wouldn't have written my story that way, but God, that is an incredible story. And so I won't give you all of the details of that. You've got to read about that. But God showed up and just blew my mind. And as crazy as it sounds, I look back at that journey and I can say now that cancer is the worst and best thing that has ever happened to me. And I wouldn't change it for anything, because it really did make me into the woman of God and the doctor and the woman that I am today. And it fueled my passion to teach other people how to find faith, joy, and laughter in the middle of a major crisis. And so I'm thankful for that journey. Spiritually, it just blows my mind every time I think of it. So spiritually, spiritual medicine, spiritual health is a part of your whole health. You can't isolate the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, because they all work together. Every one of those pieces makes up who you are. So my spiritual journey was just really grown by my cancer journey. Physically, when I was first diagnosed with cancer, I immediately went whole food, plant-based. Now, I had really, from my first health crisis, really fine-tuned my diet to what I used to eat. And I have so much grace for people who are learning in the diet realm, because when I look back at what I ate growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. So it was macaroni and cheese and Spam, and now I laugh because I'm like, what is Spam even? And I say, Spam is stuff posing as meat. That's not even food. But, I had to learn. And in my young adult, if I couldn't take it out of the freezer and put it into the microwave, I wasn't eating. So it was Weight Watchers and Marie Callender's and Healthy Choice. And I'm like, that's healthy. So I had so much to learn. And so I over my years, I learned more and more and more. And then through my education, I learned even more. But when I was diagnosed with cancer, I immediately went whole food, plant-based, because I just knew that's what I had to do to heal my body. Then in the middle of my cancer journey, I found Physicians Committee and just fell in love with the work that they do, and really dug so much deeper into the research. And it just solidified what I knew inherently that I had to do for my body. And now it's a privilege to teach others how to go whole food, plant-based for their health and wellness. I love sharing this part of my story. When I started treatment, God had made it very clear to me that he had me in both natural and conventional medicine for a reason, and that I was to use both of them to heal my heal my cancer against what I wanted to do. He made it very clear to me that that was what I was supposed to do. So when I started my treatment, they drew 29 tubes of blood and they tested everything. And although I was relatively healthy on paper, I had plenty of things that were out of normal limits. I then proceeded to go through the most toxic treatments a human body can endure. I had 12 doses of chemotherapy. I had both of my breasts amputated. I had 25 rounds of radiation. I had 28 rounds of monoclonal antibody infusions. And then cured, they redrew all of those blood tests, and over 100 blood markers after all those toxic treatments. How many do you think were out of normal limits? 0. Now, statistically, that is impossible. 100 blood markers. But to me, that was a couple different things. That was God saying, you are done and you are healed. But to me, that was also confirmation of the power of whole food, plant-based nutrition and lifestyle factors to protect and heal my body through all of those treatments. That's incredible. And that's really, really, really good news, because there are some things that we can't control that we're exposed to, but there's so much that we can control. And that's where I want to teach people how to alter those things and how to adjust those things in our life that we can control so that we can use them to our benefit to heal and protect our bodies. So diet and lifestyle were huge. Another thing that I learned during my cancer journey, now, again, I've been in healthcare for a very long time. And one thing that I wasn't quite aware of when I got to the surgical part of my journey. Now, I knew that for me, I'm a very sensitive person, chemically sensitive. I had lots of side effects during my journey. I get that from my mom. My mom is a 1%er and she passed that down to me. So I got all the weird, rare, bizarre side effects because that's just who my body is. So I knew when surgery came that breast implants were not going to be an option for me. I didn't want any more complications. I didn't want any more surgeries. And I had actually seen many women during my medical career who had experienced what they call breast implant illness. Now, I joke that if you would have told me when I was 20 that insurance would pay for breast augmentation, I'd have been like, sign me up. But older and wiser now, I knew that that was something that was just not even on the table for me. So when I went in for my surgery and my breast surgeon, which was a phenomenal woman, I just love this woman. She was very honest with me in saying that 90% of breast cancer women do breast augmentation after their surgery. And I said, we don't even need to discuss it because that's not an option for me. What I learned after my surgery is there's an entire community of women out there that have gone flat after breast cancer and mastectomy. Now, there's a couple of different things. I hate the word mastectomy. It is an amputation. That's what it is. And as bizarre and weird as it is, you do get those amputation symptoms. You get the phantom pains, you get the phantom itch, all of these weird things that you talk about when people get an arm or a leg amputated. You get that when you have mastectomy. So it is truly an amputation. But what I learned is that there's a whole community of women who have also gone flat. The sad reality is that many, many, many of these women had breast implants, developed breast implant illness, and there are pages and pages and pages of symptoms that these women have. And how the story typically goes is they have their surgery and then they slowly develop all of these symptoms and they don't make that connection. And same thing after doctor after doctor after doctor, and no answer, no answer, no answer. Someone finally says, this might be your breast implants that are making you ill. They go and have them removed and all of the symptoms clear up. So what I learned is that these women are not being educated on all of their options. They're being pressured into breast implants because that's what you do. You want to still be a woman and you want to feel like a woman, and you're going to be missing something if you don't do this. And there's this whole community out there, and I'm proud to be a part of it, to say, because your breasts are amputated because of cancer does not make you less of a woman. You are a woman because God made you a woman. Your breasts do not define you. And we have to make it culturally okay to say, I am a survivor and going flat is the healthiest option. When you put a foreign object like a breast implant into the body, your immune system, which is why all of these women have all of these autoimmune things that start popping up, because your body's trying to protect itself. And so your immune system goes into high gear trying to protect yourself from this foreign object that's in your body. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, well, my breast implants are not leaking, but it's not just leaking. The capsule itself has chemicals and components in it that your body's trying to protect. So when these women get these breast implants removed, they are literally encapsulated because the immune system has been trying to protect you from that foreign object in your body. It's really crazy. You can go on and look up some of these pictures, and it's really crazy. But we have to do a better job of working with our surgeons and working with our breast cancer patients and letting them know all of their options, and what is, in my opinion, truly the healthiest option is going flat. just like any other amputation, you can get breast implant, or I'm sorry, not breast implant, prosthetics that are custom made to you. You can get specialty bras. So if I wanted to wear, my padded bra, I can do that. It does not define me. So we've got to do a better job at preventing breast cancer. And there's tons of research out there on diet and lifestyle preventing breast cancer. We've got to do a better job of informing breast cancer women of all their options when it comes to surgery. And we've got to do a better job of supporting our patients and teaching them diet and lifestyle factors through their healing journey, especially if they decide to go the conventional route of all of those things that are going to protect and heal their body during the journey. Diet was huge for me. Again, I went whole food plant-based. I teach a lot about that. There are certain foods that are really important to know. For one, as far as avoiding, we know that processed meat is a grade 1 carcinogen. We know it causes cancer. That's our deli meats, our bacon, our sausage. We know they cause cancer. So we've got to teach people. It's just like smoking, but we're not told that. We've got to teach people we know this is a cancer causer. We also know that dairy causes cancer. Dairy increases what's called IGF-1, which is insulin growth factor 1. Insulin growth factor 1 increases tumor production. So you might be fueling the fire if you're eating a lot of dairy. We also know that by heating up any animal muscle, whether it's beef, chicken, pork, fish, any animal muscle, when you heat it up, it creates what's called heterocyclic amines and polycyclic hydrocarbons, which are cancer causers. So just because you're eating the better meat, chicken or fish, does not mean you couldn't be fueling a cancer because it's creating those components. When you have something such as a bean burger or something like that, you heat it up, but it's not creating those components because it's not a muscle meat. Okay. There are what I like to call my superfoods. So when I teach, there are 5 superfoods that help to protect and heal your body. First is soy. Soy is a huge superfood. Now we are taught that soy is bad for you. Soy is actually very, very, very good for you. It is anti-cancer. They thought that it produces estrogen. Soy is actually a phytoestrogen, which acts differently in the body. We've got 2 estrogen receptors in our body, the alpha, which our normal hormones connect to, and we've got a beta, which the phytoestrogens in soy connect to, and it's actually protective and anti-cancer. So soy is very, very good. I do caution, always get organic if you're going to do soy, because soy is the #1 genetically modified crop in this country. Number 2 is cruciferous vegetables. That is your broccoli, your cauliflower, your cabbage, your Brussels sprouts. Those have anti-cancer properties. Number 3 is flaxseed. I love flaxseed. My oncologist actually told me that flaxseed is just as effective as chemotherapy, which is a really big statement. Flaxseed is very much anti-cancer. So put it on your cereal or your granola and your oatmeal, put it in your salads, put it in your smoothies. Flaxseed is fantastic. The 4th is sauerkraut. We've got to heal our gut and we've got to protect our gut, and that microbiome plays a huge role in our immune system. 16 ounces of sauerkraut is equal to 8 bottles of probiotic. This is a superfood. So load up on your sauerkraut and add that to your dishes. And the last is microgreens. Microgreens are really nutrient dense. During my cancer journey, I had this precious friend who grew microgreens, and she would bring broccoli microgreens, which are actually very anti-cancer for breast cancer. And so she would bring them to me every week, and I would add them to my dishes as well. So those are my top 5 superfoods. And then we talk about the other diet and the other lifestyle factors that go along with it. Now, I've worked in the hospitals for a lot of years and had no idea the research and impact that exercise has on cancer. Now, I have worked in hospitals where cancer patients just sit in their chairs. They sit in their chair for 6 hours while they get their chemotherapy. They're eating their cookies. They're watching TV. But the integrative clinic that I went to, they had exercise bikes and treadmills. So they would put your chemotherapy on and then encourage you to go get on the bike. And the research they shared with me is that if you exercise during and after your chemotherapy, it makes your chemotherapy more effective and your side effects less. Now, my oncologist also told me the last thing that you're going to want to do after your chemotherapy is to get up and exercise. And he was right. But the day or two after my chemotherapy, when it all started to hit and I was just feeling miserable, I would drag myself out of bed, get on the treadmill, do a 20-minute, walk, nothing super strenuous, but he was right. Like the side effects were lessened because of that. And this is something that we don't teach our cancer patients. We tell them you need to rest and relax. No, you need to get up and you need to move, not just in cancer, but in every disease and everybody who wants to stay healthy. We have to move our bodies. There were several other things that I did. I've got lots of naturopathic IVs during my treatment, but some of the other, herbs, for example, that I used were turmeric is fantastic. Resveratrol is really important. So there are some herbs that can be very helpful to reduce inflammation and to heal the body as well. And then certainly mental, emotional, cancer's a roller coaster. I had up days, I had down days. And, for me, that was something that I anticipated, but cancer was a far more mental, emotional game than it was a physical game, because fear is real, but fear is a liar. And for me, I had to put my focus on Jesus and the Lord and trust that he was going to get me through. And I have one more quick story for you, and I like to share this story as well. There's a woman named Jane, and her stage name is Nightbird, and she became famous on America's Got Talent when she sang her song, It's Okay. And the judges asked her, well, what's your story? And she said, I'm a cancer patient and they've given me 2% chance to live, but I want people to know that 2% is not nothing, and you can't wait until life isn't hard anymore before you decide you're going to be happy. And so I went online and I looked up a little bit more of her story, and she said, when you can't find God, you need to look lower. And when you still can't find God, you need to look lower still, because God is on the bathroom floor. And when I read that, I was like, oh, because I too had experienced that. And it was after my 5th round of chemotherapy, and I was so sick, and I had managed to crawl my way to the bathroom floor, and I was miserable, and I didn't know whether I was going to puke or poop my pants or pass out or all three. And it was my husband's birthday, and he was beside himself, not knowing how to help me. And I said, just, can you get me a blanket and a mat and just let me lay here for a while? And so he did. And I laid there and I said, okay, Jill, what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to handle this? Because I could focus on the storm and how miserable I felt and how awful cancer was, or I can figure out how to get into the eye of the storm, which I knew was where Jesus and peace were. And so there on that bathroom floor, I just went into a spiritual battle, and I just started reciting scriptures that I had memorized. And I put praise music on and started praising the Lord and listened to sermon after sermon, and just really changing my focus. And there on that bathroom floor, like scripture says, I felt the peace that surpasses all understanding, like I had never felt in my life. And everything else just melted away. So not only did my cancer journey teach me so much more about nutrition and lifestyle measures, it taught me how to, one, keep my focus. Mental, emotional is important. So for me, that's keeping my focus on Jesus, and perspective, keeping everything in perspective and realizing that God can use everything for good. And like I said, I look back at my journey and I just wowed at what only God can do. And so it is my privilege to just pour into other people who are going through crisis, to teach them to how to get through their crisis with faith, joy, and even laughter.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. I do have one quick question. Can you repeat those 5 superfoods again?
Absolutely. Soy, cruciferous vegetables, flaxseed, sauerkraut, and microgreens. Now, there are many, many more superfoods, but those are my top 5.
Absolutely. And happens to be things that I eat quite frequently. So I'm happy to know that.
Jill, your presentation was very, very inspiring. And I sent a message to Hope. She's going to hate me for saying this, but I asked her if she was crying. And she said, I am. I cannot believe a doctor is giving God the credit. So.
Oh, always has to get the credit. Always, always, always.
But
But,
most doctors never figure that out.
yeah.
Well, here's an interesting thing. So unfortunately, I've worked in hospitals for a long time, and a lot of doctors have these God complexes that they think they're high and mighty. And I'm going to share this story really quick because I think we can learn a lot from our patients. We learn a lot from ourselves. And when we know that we're not in control, that it's all God working through me. But I had a patient, his name is Brian, and he's allowed me to share his story. He had 2 rare forms of muscular dystrophy. And the fact that he had both of them, he's only one of 2 people in the world who has what he has. And he was he was brought to me kind of kicking and screaming like I was to the naturopathic doctor, but he was desperate too. And we only did 2 things with Brian. We did very drastic dietary changes, and we did a little bit of detox. Now, Brian had muscle wasting, extreme pain, was near wheelchair bound, couldn't walk very far. And within 2 months, Brian was nearly pain-free, reduced his medication, and walking 10 miles a day. And what's devastating to me is he went back to his specialist at the University of Iowa for his disease, and he walked in and they were like, what on earth? And of course, he was very excited to tell them what he'd been doing, and they didn't even want to hear it. They're like, okay, great. Keep doing what you're doing. See you in 6 months. In my book, that's malpractice, because if you'd have humbled yourself and listened to your patient, how many more patients could you have impacted? We just have to realize that we are just the vessel. And when a doctor gets that right, that's when you make life change.
Okay. Jill, I have a question for you. Sauerkraut, I like, but I hate the salt. If you wash the sauerkraut, do you still get the benefit?
That's a good point. I've never done that. Certainly you could try that. That comes down to label reading. So you need to find a really good brand that doesn't have all the additives and doesn't have super amount of salt. So compare brands.
Mhm.
Now, I was never a sauerkraut lover, but I found a brand that I love. It's called Bubby's. And it is just the cabbage and the salt. So comparing, if you can make your own, great. I haven't mastered that either, but it comes down to label reading and comparing to make sure you're getting the best one.
Debbie, I don't remember which one of the doctors, I seem to think it was Dr. Clapper, but I wouldn't swear to it, did say that you still get the probiotic benefits of sauerkraut, even if you rinse it. I rinse mine.
Oh, good.
And I rinse it in warm water because you shouldn't heat it too hot. You're going to kill the good bugs if you do. So I rinse it in warm water and then add it to my dish or sandwich, or I like it on sandwiches. So yeah, but I just don't remember which doctor said that, but I've been doing it ever since I heard it.
We grew up on sauerkraut, but my grandmother always washed it. And unfortunately, she cooked it with a pork loin. So
My mother
It was really tasty.
Aaron says, wow, thank you for sharing such a beautiful life story. And once again, that was a beautiful life story for sure. Hope would like you to repeat the 5 superfoods once again.
Absolutely.
She was crying.
But no problem. Listen, yes, I get it. Soy, cruciferous vegetables, that's your broccoli, your cauliflower, your cabbage, your Brussels sprouts, flaxseed, sauerkraut, and then microgreens.
Microgreens. Thank you.
You said something at the rally on Saturday about flaxseed. Do you remember what you said? Because it took me back, how powerful it was.
Yes, my oncologist told me that 2 tablespoons of flaxseed a day is just as powerful as chemotherapy, which when he told me that blew my mind too.
Perfect. Okay, folks. So if you can write your questions for Dr. Jill in the comments, we are getting them. Laura says, Sovereign organic kraut, Publix, 1 spoon a day, cured 2 years of diarrhea. Wow, that's powerful.
Damn.
Debbie, I had a question that was sent in before the Zoom. Dr. Jennings, this person is menopausal, so she's postmenopausal, excuse me. And so that maybe that'll give you an idea of her concern, because we're worried when we get there about even more breast cancer. Is that correct?
So a lot of it is around the hormones and the issue with postmenopausal hormone changes. Now, chemotherapy threw me into menopause as well. And one of the things that I learned in regard to soy, in the protective measures that soy has, they actually did a study on postmenopausal women and hot flashes, which I thought was really fascinating, and the impact that soy had on improving hot flashes. And they took women that were postmenopausal, having a lot of hot flashes. And I believe, if I remember correctly, the study, it was a small amount, like a quarter cup of soy a day, whether that's soy milk or edamame or tofu, whatever type of soy that you're going to use. And it drastically reduced their hot flashes in a short period of time, something like 4 weeks or something like that. And they said this had to have been a fluke. Mm-hmm. So they redid the study and found exactly the same results. So the soy is really helping that hormone balance, because that's what throws you into these hot flashes, because the imbalance. So those sort of things can be really, really helpful in helping to balance the hormones in postmenopausal women.
Okay. And what she was saying is she's never had children, and she also has dense breasts, and she was curious, would the superfoods help her and women like her, because she knows a lot of friends that are in the same situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. And you got to also remember that fiber is key. So when we're talking about toxins and especially excess hormones, so when we talk about breast cancer, we initially go to hormone-driven breast cancers. There's different type of breast cancers, but the primary one is hormone-driven breast cancers. Mm-hmm. So the thought is, if you've got extra estrogen in your body, you could be fueling an estrogen-driven breast cancer. The thing that you need to know is that excess body weight, fat in the body, also produces estrogen, which is why a high BMI or excess body fat in the body makes you have a higher risk of breast cancer, because it's producing extra estrogen. Okay, so we want to get the weight down. That's one risk factor that we can control, getting the weight down so we get that excess fat down, so it's not producing that excess estrogen. The other component to that is understanding the role of fiber. Fiber is key, key, key. I call fiber the garbage men of the body, because they carry the junk out. So if we do not have extra fiber or enough fiber in our body, those extra estrogens, those toxins, the things that your body doesn't need, keep circulating in our body, just waiting to wreak havoc or waiting to fuel cancers or whatever the issue is. So we need that fiber to grab onto those things and excrete them out of the body. If we don't have that, they just continue to circulate. What people don't understand is that animal products have zero fiber. Fiber only comes from plants, which is why plant-based nutrition is really, really important. Animal products have zero fiber. So we have to up the amount of fiber we're getting through our plants. So we've got a lot of fiber to carry those excess hormones out, to carry those toxins out that we're exposed to, and to excrete those things out to reduce the burden on our bodies.
Okay, and then I have another question that was sent in. And this wasn't breast cancer, so this was prostate cancer. And is overweight also as bad for someone who has prostate cancer as it is for women who have breast cancer?
Overweight is bad for many, many diseases. We know that weight contributes to a lot of different diseases: heart disease, diabetes, cancers, many cancers. So absolutely across the board, weight is something we have control over as a risk factor. So absolutely.
Okay. Okay. And then
I have another question.
Oh, go ahead, Vicki.
You mentioned herbs and different things, but you specifically said turmeric and resveratrol.
Mhm.
What was your source for your resveratrol?
So I got them IV. I got 6 different naturopathic IVs with every round of chemotherapy and every round of antibody infusion. So let me see if I can remember all 6 of them. I got IV turmeric, resveratrol, glutathione, quercetin, a multivitamin, and a vitamin C. So before and after every round of chemotherapy, those were the infusions that I got. Now, I will tell you my God story in relation, one of the miracles that God did for me, because we're talking about it and I have to share because it just gives me God goosebumps. So when I started on my cancer journey, I initially didn't want to do any therapies because I said, I've seen what chemosurgery and radiation does to people. I don't want anything to do with that. I tried to treat my cancer naturally. It worked for the first 4 months. And then it was like somebody's poured gasoline on the fire and it started growing out of control. I had a total encounter with the Holy Spirit and he told me, nope, this is what I need you to do. I need you to go here and I need you to show people. Here's the reality. We were praying for a miracle. I was believing for God. And God said to me, if I cured you through a miracle, how many people would how many people would that affect? And I said, well, me, my family, I'll tell the world. But I knew immediately where he was going. God was speaking to me in my spirit. He said, if I cured you only through natural medicine, then how many people would that affect? I believe in my medicine and I know that it works. But the reality is that when people are diagnosed with cancer, fear is real. And very, very few people are going to only do natural medicine. Most people will do whatever their oncologist says, and then they may dabble in a few natural therapies. So I knew exactly where he was going. And he said to me in my spirit, he said, if I sent you to an integrative clinic done the right way, and you use both of them together, and then you brought all that knowledge back, then how many people could you affect? And I was like, here's my cup, fill it up. I will drink whatever you put in it. So I knew exactly what he was calling me to do. So I got my treatment through this integrative clinic where they did chemosurgery and radiation, but they did all these natural therapies with it to help the body heal, and the patients do so much better through this clinic. Here was my problem. I said, all right, God, I will go and do what you're calling me to do, but I am $250,000 in medical school debt and I've got 4 kids. So I ain't got that kind of money because none of the natural therapies are covered by insurance. So we calculated up how much it was going to cost me. My journey was 16 months long. And I calculated up our out-of-pocket max and our deductibles and all the natural therapies and supplements and infusions that were not going to be covered by insurance. And the number was $100,000. And I'm like, okay, God, I'll go, but you need to send the money because I have no idea how this is going to work. So we started a GoFundMe, and then several of our, yes, it was the block clinic in Skokie, up north of Chicago. That's where I got my treatment. You're absolutely correct. And so we started to GoFundMe, and our family and friends started to pour into that. And I knew that it was just such a blessing, but I knew that it was just the tip of the iceberg of what I was going to need. And so then I remember I had an old retirement account from a hospital that I worked at. So, and I remember how much was in it because I looked it up 3 years prior and I had wrote it down. And so I knew how much was in there, and there was $6,000 and some change in there. And I thought, well, maybe I can take a few $1,000s out of there. So I pulled up that account, and I'm going to give you one guess how much was in that account.
$106,000.
100,777. God said, I see your number. I know what you need. I know you need $100,000, but do you see me? 777. 7 is the number for perfection. It represents God in the Bible. Repetition is how he gets our attention. He said, I know your number and I know what you need, but do you see me? And have I not provided for your every need? The Bible says God will provide all, not some, for all of your needs. And every penny of my cancer journey was paid for. And that was just one of the miracles that God did for me.
Wow.
You ought to write a book.
I did. You got to
Where-
read it. You got to read all the miracles.
Where is your practice?
So I don't see patients one-on-one anymore. We moved to Florida in May of this year. and COVID killed my private practice. So God had called me to do an online platform. And I love that because I can reach far more people. And so what I do is I have a program called Foundational Health, Building Your Health on a Firm Foundation. And it is a lifestyle medicine based on biblical principles. So there's a course and I teach you every aspect of a lifestyle that impacts your health. We do weekly Zoom calls. I do nutrition and cooking classes. We've got a private Facebook group where we just encourage each other on our journeys. So I do an online membership where I teach lifestyle medicine now.
Excellent.
That's awesome.
And Linda put the link to her book on Amazon. It's in the chat. And Linda, why don't you go ahead and put up the link to her website now too?
Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you so much.
Yep, it's just drjilljennings.com.
Yeah. So that's great.
Do we have any more questions for Dr. Jill? This has been such an eye opener.
Been great.
Promise you.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love your enthusiasm. If that doesn't strike power in your patients, I don't know what would. Yeah.
Well, again, I am just so passionate about, I just refuse to let my suffering be in vain. And if I can prevent one more person, listen, it cracks me up. I've treated a lot of diseases. There's not one single disease across any disease, even any cancers, that's like the Pink Sister Club. But it's a club you never want to join. But the Pink Sister Club is so tight. Like if you meet a breast cancer survivor, that club is tight.
Wow.
But it is a club no one should ever have to join again. So my passion, and again, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we're in October. Like I hated October. I hated Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I'll tell you this part of my story too. When I was diagnosed, my official, what is the date today? Oh my gosh. Today is the day that I got my official diagnosis 3 years ago, October 5th. And I could not escape the pink. And my hospital that I worked at the time, we had a pink Christmas tree in the lobby and pink banners everywhere, and every light outside the hospital was pink. And it was a salt in a wound for me. And I just argued with God. And I was like, are you kidding me? Is everything I worked for my whole life a joke? And it was a week after my biopsy. And I went into the bathroom to check on, this was the first miracle that he did for me. I went into the bathroom to check on the bruising on my breast where they had done the biopsy. And I looked into the mirror and about fell on the floor because like I said, I hated pink. And God had turned the bruise into a perfect pink breast cancer ribbon. It wasn't like, well, it kind of sort of looks like a ribbon. It was a perfect pink breast cancer ribbon. And I was like, and so clearly in my spirit, he said, embrace it because we're going to use this for good. And so from then on, I was like, okay, God, I don't like it and I don't want it, but I have to trust you because I know you're up to something.
Wow.
And so, I love pink now, as you can see, and I will just preach it to the moon because we are not doing a good enough job about teaching and preaching prevention. So many diseases that we deal with today, 95% of them to be exact, are diet and lifestyle related. And I say that the majority of our doctors just don't know what they don't know. The sad reality is that our American medical schools are funded by the drug companies. So they're taught how to treat symptoms with drugs and side effects with more drugs. It's not their fault. They just don't know what they don't know, which is why I do what I do, because people don't know what they don't know. When I get done with them, they're like, why didn't my doctor tell me this? I'm like, because they don't know. It's not their fault. So that's why I have such a passion. And I will talk to anybody who will listen to me. Believe it or not, I'm very much an introvert until you get me talking about naturopathic medicine and disease. So yeah, we need to fuel the fire for more doctors and more healthcare professionals to start doing preventative medicine.
And
Your online program, is it strictly for treatment? Is it for prevention?
All of it.
Just all overall health?
Because what I have learned is that when you don't get those lifestyle measures in order first, it doesn't really matter what else you do. It's like breast cancer, okay? I have seen over the years, women who have breast cancer, they get their breast amputated and they go back and they live the life that they lived before, eating their garbage, sitting on their butts, not, super stressed out. And then they come back with a more aggressive cancer on the other side because you haven't fixed the problem.
Right.
Breast cancer is not a disease. It is a symptom of your body trying to tell you that something's out of line. So that's why I focus now strictly on lifestyle medicine, because you have to get the foundation right first.
I love it.
What do? You mentioned the importance of the mental and emotional component in that lifestyle medicine. Can you just give us a quick look at what that involves?
Absolutely. A lot of it is focus. We are so culturally driven that it drives me crazy. And a lot of that for me is spiritual. When you know your worth because God tells you what your worth is, and you don't allow other people to say who and what you are, that's the first layer. You got to get that right first, because if you got culture telling you, you're not doing it right, you're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough, that's going to affect your mental and emotional state. So when you get right with God first, then that is a little bit easier to manage your mental emotional. Now, I'm an emotionally driven person, so I've had to learn how to curtail that and taking a step back to assess the situation and say, okay, well, what are my options for dealing with this situation? Because my human nature is to react emotionally to whatever the situation is. And that can be unhealthy. Like our mental emotional state can really affect us physically. It all kind of goes downhill. So teaching people about your self-talk, your self-worth, those affirmations that have become popular, there's value in that, protecting yourself from that social media barrage of what we're told we have to be. What God thinks about us is more important than what people say about us. And we've got to get that straight first. And then community is huge, especially when it comes to mental and emotional health. You become who you surround yourself with. So if you're surrounding yourself with toxic people, guess what? You're probably going to be toxic too. So getting a community of like-minded people who are going to lift you up, support you, encouraging you, you're going to feed off of that for each other, and you're going to be on a better path. So mental, emotional health has a lot to do with spiritual health, has a lot to do with physical health, has a lot to do with community. And a lot of the lifestyle factors that I teach, they're all intertwined. It's kind of like physical medicine. American medicine, we have the family practice doctor, which is the gatekeeper. Then we've got our cardiologist, our kidney doctor, our dermatologist, and we treat them as separate entities, but they're not. Your cardiac, if I had somebody that came into the emergency room with chest pain, of course, we're going to rule out those big bad things. But if I don't address the fact that they're so stressed out because they're losing their job, their marriage is a disaster, blah, 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 I'm missing it, because they're all intertwined. So mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, all are together.
Dr. Jill, you talked about the IVs that you got. And I'm thinking in my brain about alternative medicines. And I guess some of the places that I have heard about really do a lot with juicing. And was that part of your repertoire of getting well?
Yes, Debbie, thank you for mentioning that. Juicing was huge. With my first round of chemotherapy, I lost all of my taste. So nothing tasted good to me at all. I couldn't really taste anything. So juicing was an incredible way to flood my body with nutrition. So I did a lot of juicing. I did a lot of smoothies as well. I found a plant-based protein powder company that I loved. It's called Your Super, and they're online. They've got really pure organic protein and superfood powders, they call them. And I use them. They were actually created when the husband of the duo that created that company got cancer very young. And the wife said, well, I got to do something to heal his body. And so she started making all these superfood powders, and that's how that company came to be. So I found them in the middle of my journey. They were fantastic. So I used that in my protein powders. I also found a company called Kate Farms. Love that company as well. It's like an Ensure or a Boost protein drinks, but way better. Don't drink Ensure or Boost. Those are terrible. Kate Farms is a plant-based nutritional supplement, really good quality, really incredible. They did a small research study on cancer patients and found that 100% of the patients on Kate Farm maintained or gained weight on their product, which is unheard of because weight loss is a huge issue for cancer patients going through treatment. So did a ton of juicing. Did a lot of smoothies. I drank Kate Farms. So if I wasn't feeling up to eating a full meal, those were some of the go-tos that I went through to get the nutrition in. Yeah, those were great, great things that I did to help flood my body with the nutrition.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, this is, wait, let me see if there's one more. So is that Kate Farm with a K?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And so BC asked, can you list those companies one more time?
Yes. So Your Super.
And that's YOUR.
YOUR. Yep. Just like it sounds. YOUR. Super. SUPER. And they're all online. You can order these companies online. Your Super. Kate Farms. KATE Farms. They're working to get into the stores, but they're not there yet. Kate Farms. And then I just bought a new juicer. I've had several juicers over my life, and I bought a very, very expensive one during my cancer journey. But this one I think is so amazing. It's called Nama J2, NAMA J2. Love this juicer. It's amazing. What are some of the other things? I took tons of supplements, and I could list all of them. At the height of my cancer journey, I took 104 supplements a day. But my number one supplement is Juice Plus, and it's just whole food, plant-based nutrition in a capsule, and it literally floods the body at the cellular level. And I took a triple dose of that during my cancer journey every day. Love that product. They've got 40 double-blind research control or 40 double-blind placebo-controlled studies done on their product. Fantastic product. Love that supplement. I took turmeric. I took high-dose reishi mushrooms, are really good for cancer as well. And then the IVs that I had mentioned before as well.
Awesome. Well, this has been totally inspiring. And we just thank you so much for being here and sharing your journey. And once again, you said it before that you are, you're living it. You are doing it naturally. Well, you did it together. So Kathy, do you want to tell Dr. Jennings about her thank you present?
Oh, I'd love to. And we really do hold you close to our hearts, Dr. Jennings. It was so kind of you to come today and share your personal experience. And also, you know, the things that got you there. That's helpful to all of us, especially those who are suffering from breast cancer. And so we want to send a heart to you. This is a lavender heart. And it works really well if you heat it up or you put it in the freezer for different purposes. A lot of times people just hold it to their chest and think good thoughts as they smell that wonderful lavender. So look for that in the mail.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Kahleova from the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. She is the research director, and she has been doing research on type 1 and type 2 diabetes for quite some time. Now, she will be speaking on type 2 diabetes. And I see Linda has put the link there so that you can register for that. She has also been doing type 1 diabetes, but she let me know that that information cannot be released yet because it has not been published. But I know that it is good information, but so she's going to be, her title or this presentation is tackling type 2 diabetes with a whole food plant-based diet.
So powerful. I remember learning, well, Dr. Barnard has a video on it, and she always plays one by him. And he was talking even about prostate cancer and diet, and that was really interesting. So highly recommend it. And the next class, Debbie, is when?
Next Tuesday,
Okay.
the 10th of October, and they are free. They're from 6 to 7:30. Sometimes we have a tendency to go later, but we would love for people to join us.